Hello, listeners. Some of you may recognise me from such times as the Brendan Fraser History Month or the end of this podcast, but I come today with a much more important message. Every year, millions of pods go unlistened. Countless people spend hours sat in dark rooms, owning the microphone and a red recording light for comfort. And they're not doing this for a higher cause. They're not doing it for all the sex obviously associated with podcast hosting. No, they're doing it for you. Missing out on listening to the Say Report is like missing out on second breakfast. Although it's not always necessary, and some would say it's even bad for your health, the real fact of the matter is that it makes you feel better. Like an awkward hug from an acquaintance or an already warm toilet seat, the Say Report is here to comfort and love you, all the while making you feel a little bit left out because you probably missed an in-joke somewhere. Although you don't need one, there's a perfectly valid reason to now go back to the start and listen to all of them, because neither of the co-hosts, who aren't actually co-hosts, want you to ever feel like you're not part of the inner circle. 5-star review.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Say Report. Welcome to the Say Report. I am your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my other host, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan, say hello to the people.
Hey, I am not looking at porn right now. That is not happening.
You know, if you didn't say you were looking at porn right now, no one would have thought you would, except for only the most avid of listeners. Welcome to the Say Report. Now, we've been doing this podcast for a while. We've got about 22 episodes under our belts, so that's something to go back and listen to if it's your first time. If it is your first time, again, welcome to the Say Report. Right up at the top, you heard our buddy Will. He does our stuff at the end. He is a great friend of ours. He's our third musketeer.
Yeah, and may I say,
he's not here.
Also, and then for me, if this is your first time listening to the show, what are you doing? Go back to number one. We don't talk about things in any particular order. You're going to get just as much enjoyment now out of those episodes as you would have, if you listened to them then.
And
so go back and find our episodes.
Even though we don't talk about things in any sort of order, there is a weird sort of continuity that has come out of it.
Well, of course, we are excellent world builders. Don't get me wrong, but yeah.
The Say Report is going to be a deep, rewarding experience, and because I feel it is already a deep and rewarding experience, we're on episode 23. Siege and I used to do a podcast called Two Friends on a Couch, and on our 23rd episode, that's when I felt confident enough that we could ask our listeners to rate and review our product.
Yeah, 23 is a good age for that. That's when you do. You start to get confident. You've been drinking for a couple of years. You're pretty sure that you're an adult now. You go out and you make a couple of mistakes, but you're mature enough to accept those mistakes now, right? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make some mature mistakes.
We're going to make the most mature mistakes, but always on the 23s. That's the only time you're going to hear from us. Rate and review us on iTunes, because rating and reviewing a podcast on iTunes, that's what gives it that juice, that heat, that chutzpah, that gets it into other people's ears. And I think I am proud of what we do. Siege, and I think you're proud of what we do. And we just want as many people to hear it as possible.
I'm something. Yeah. People should listen to us. I agree with that.
You should listen to us, and you should listen to our philosophy. And we talk about everything. We're going to talk about everything and anything. 1 week we're going to be talking about R-rated action flicks. The next week we're going to do a deep dive into the Pixar catalog. Sometimes we're talking about Cheers. Sometimes we're talking about the shows that just got canceled or renewed. We are a grab bag. We are a potpourri. A potpourri. Is it potpourri or potpourri?
Well, for us, it's a potpourri. It's a potpourri of...
We're a potpourri on parade. We are the Say Report. Thank you for joining us. So
I claim that band name. Nobody else can take that band name. I claim it.
That's right? I think also podcasting works as a sort of reverse copywriting. So if we said it, we now own it, right?
Yeah, it's like mailing it to yourself. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, the internet, how you've changed things. But yes,
Potpourri on Parade, though, they would totally be in the same vein as like My Chemical Romance and all that, right? And like,
yes, that's exactly what it would be. They're the kind of guys who like start up as a band because they're all staying at their grandmother's house for the summer, and all happen to play instruments.
When we all go diving in the lake together, we might as well be in a band.
I love it. All right. So, Sejan, let's give these listeners a little taste of what it is. You say you bring like a light-hearted topic and something heavy. Let's roll the dice, buddy. If it's odd, then it's light. If it's even, then it's heavy.
Okay. What do we got?
I thought you had the die.
Oh, no. Wait, I mean, I do. I have a whole bag of dye right at the ready.
See, because Siegen, Foley work.
Oh, man. All right, let's see. Oh, 0 counts as an odd, doesn't it?
0 counts as an even.
Oh, 0 counts as an even. Well, then, even meant light or heavy? I wasn't listening to any of this.
heavy.
What are we doing? Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So let's start with a little bit of a headier topic today. No, I've been revisiting a lot of stuff lately, and honestly, a lot of it is because of this show. You know, we've been doing this, as you said, now 23 episodes, 23 weeks now. We've been going hard since January. Jeez, man, this is like we started right at the beginning of the year, didn't we?
Yeah, because we saw each other over Christmas break, and we're both like, "Oh, we were both parts of podcasts, and now
That's
we're
exactly
not."
what it was. Yeah,
So-
if this is not the nerdiest start of a podcast ever, we were at a bar at Dave and Buster's, and we were just like, you know what we should do after playing all of these arcade games together is we should make a nerdy podcast together. Yeah, man. So I've been revisiting some things lately because we've been talking so much about nostalgia lately and all that sort of stuff. Also, the other side of this coin is I'm dirt poor. I'm not ashamed to say it. And so like one of the easiest ways for me to like make sure that I don't go out and spend money is to, you know, sit around and watch old DVDs that I've got and things like that. So I've been revisiting all sorts of old stuff recently. I've decided to restart Scrubs, for instance, is a big thing that I'm doing in my life right now. As far as like, yeah, that's, you know, that's a big part of my life.
You know,
But, like,
you know who's in Scrubs? Brendan Fraser.
Yeah,
We're
that was
big
actually
fans
that's where
of
that
Brendan
yeah,
Fraser.
that's
on
where that
this
got
show.
born from. You know, we talked a little bit about Brendan Fraser and kind of the amazing things that he has kind of shown up in randomly, and that's definitely one of them. A big surprise was when he showed up as JD's brother, right?
He's actually Jordan's brother.
He's Jordan's brother.
Yeah, he's Jordan. I've given you a quiz as to what is the familiar relationship for Brendan Fraser
I
in
still get it wrong.
Scrubs. Every
Yeah.
time you get it wrong.
Yeah, also, for anybody first time listeners, yeah, we do quizzes sometimes on each other. It's fun.
They're like
it's fun.
pranks, though. It's like, oh yeah, and like today I was driving to work. It's quiz time.
And it's just like pranks. They're only funny to the person pulling them and nobody else.
Yeah. No, I think people love to see a squirm, Siegen.
But yeah, so I've been doing some Scrubs stuff. Also, primarily because my girlfriend has never seen any of Scrubs. Really, she's seen like 1 or 2 offhanded episodes. So I've got this like glorious like mission to like show her kind of one of the more, I mean, formative shows of my life. There's a lot about Scrubs that I've realized kind of dictates what I like nowadays in like TV and music. That's the other big thing about Scrubs is a phenomenal soundtrack from like day one. We just watched like the episode 4 or 5 that ends in the entire like Jeff Buckley Hallelujah montage that they do, and like that's like bam right at the beginning of the series. You know, like that sort of stuff is happening throughout.
That's the episode that I'm like, oh, this show is different. I'm gonna watch Scrubs every week.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been doing some of that. Restarted some Community. I had gotten halfway through season 4, and like a lot of people had realized that it had really lost its way. So I kind of didn't pay attention much after that. You know, I popped in because I do like all of those actors, love all of those comedians and creators and stuff. So like I was paying attention to it after season 4, but I just wasn't putting the effort in to watch it every week. And so again, my girlfriend's like, well, you've got to at least start on season 5 again. Let's just not worry about season 4. And that was a wise choice because we started right up season 5, and then like I've been watching the last couple of seasons that I didn't get to watch. So that's pretty cool. So a lot of that sort of stuff's been going on with me lately. And it's made me kind of realize, and this latches into a conversation that you and I had last week, and so I apologize to anybody that hasn't listened to that yet. Go back and listen to Devin's amazing rant at the beginning of last week's episode about how we're all going to be okay, because it led to a lot of me thinking about how I was watching this stuff this week, and that realization that a lot of the stuff that was formative for me, and I assume for you, Devin, is it came out during some pretty shitty years in this country. As much as we don't like to think about it, 2000 to 2008 were not great for us in this country. The rest of the world kind of started losing a lot of faith in us. And I don't know about you, Devin, but for me as like a 17-year-old, like about to become an adult in this world and having to deal with things, like I was entering a world with like the Iraq War, a president that, as far as I knew, was the biggest idiot on the planet until future
we started doing a podcast, right?
Yeah,
we're very sorry about that.
Yeah, the future would prove that one out to be actually not the worst that could have happened. But you know, so like a lot of like really crappy stuff was going on in the world, and I was kind of worried about the world that I was going into as an adult, which is you know, like if I start thinking about it, like it's what made me realize I wanted to be an artist was because I wanted that was the way that I felt I could make a difference in all of the crap that was happening. So I went into theater, right? The way that I look at the world and the way that I look at comedy and the way that, you know, we just talked for an hour one day about this whole like neo-Gothic stuff and about how I'm into this like darker like look at broken heroes and stuff that I am. And a lot of that comes from the fact that we grew up in this kind of weird world, right? And so like looking back on all of this stuff and realizing the things that really kind of, you know, made me who I am. That's what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And a lot of it has to do with this show, weirdly enough.
Well, I mean, I thank you for that. I'm gonna, since someone should say thank you, and it's a pretty, it's a little what's the word here, conceited to say thank you for thanking our own podcast for having you be retrospective. But you're kind of being the smart retrospective, and that's. I mean, nostalgia is great, right? There's a reason why South Park, their whole last season was about member berries and how people just want to go back to that simpler time in their life. And that's why, like, the NES Classic, it was sold out everywhere. And today they announced the SNES Classic. Like, people are trending on nostalgia. But there's two ways to look at nostalgia. There's the kind of nostalgia you look at where, like, I just want to go back and I want to play with the things and do the things that I was doing back then when things were easier and things were simpler. Or there's what you just described, which is reminiscing. And you learn from reminiscing. If you go and hide with nostalgia, but when it comes to reminiscing, you're kind of combing for the lessons that come from it. Like you talk about, like you were this kid and you were thinking about all that. In those years, for me, I'm in college, I'm in high school, and I'm making the difference where I can make the difference. Right? I'm not a voting age yet, right?
Right.
But I see injustice every day. I see powerful people taking advantage of their power in order to persecute the little guy. And yes, that's administration against student or something like that. But that is where I got involved. And even looking at the political landscape that we're at now, right? There's no way that like you or I could do something that would make Donald Trump bat an eye. Right?
Exactly.
But we all say that you know, everybody needs to fight and you need to do it. And that's where you start. You need to deal with the corruption that's in your own life. You need to deal with the problems that are happening in your backyard, because if you act locally, it will begin to have that effect globally. And
like I'll give you a nice little example of that. It was like, you know, I got into to this theater stuff and I was trying to figure out what I could do. And the closest that I ever got, this is like my favorite story about this sort of thing for me, is like this dude that we went to school with, Cory Rancourt. That's a name from the past. Cory, if you're listening,
all the things that
thank
I
you.
Could say.
You know, after I graduated from undergrad, Cory was one of those dudes that would call me up for anything. If a job came up and he thought I was capable of handling it, he's like, hey, you want to come make a few bucks? So like, I will never be able to say thank you enough to that dude for that aspect. Right. And one of the things that he pulled me into was this little opera going on in this really, really like 20-seat theater in Berkeley College. And I got to go and help out just doing some of the lighting stuff for him. And like, you know, we're up in like basically asbestos, like central up in this little like duct area, putting lights up. Right. And all of a sudden, somebody comes into the theater and goes, hey, did you know that we're on Fox News right now? And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, this show that we're doing, it's up on Fox News. See, what we were doing was we were doing a graduate's dissertation. He had written an operatic version of the debate between Sarah Palin and Joe Biden. And we were doing an opera version of that. And like, you know, I was just there to put lights up, but holy crap, like we got on Fox News and they had this whole debate on Fox News for 20 minutes about whether or not this thing was pro Palin or if it was like this huge sham, because it was being put up by this very liberal college. And like, it was crazy that they were talking about this show that I was working on Fox News, and it was pissing people off on Fox News, and I couldn't have been happier. Like, and it was this cool little moment where I realized that I had made the right choice, that like, I'm not doing much every day that's going to make, like you said, Donald Trump's never really going to bat an eye at me, right? But for one moment, because of this choice, because of what I decided to go into, I got to be on Fox News for that 1 second. It was awesome.
Respect, man. I really do respect that.
Yeah.
The thing that I can relate that to the most is just that one time that I tried to combat ignorance in my own life and wound up on television, and that was when you and I went and protested the Da Vinci Code.
Oh man,
But
yeah, and John Carpilio interviewed us, didn't
yes,
he, or somebody? Yeah.
John Carpilio, that is correct. WP 12, whatever channel 12 is. I think it's WPRI 12 interviewed us because we went there protesting it on like the grounds of ad adam absurdum. Like we were just like, let's take it to the level of why you could protest this but not be a religious person. Because I can't speak for you, but I know that like in college I learned about religion because I had a lot of friends who had just discovered it in their lives.
Yeah. Right.
And it was never something that I ever really needed. I mean, the faith that I have, the philosophy that I preach is I'm Devin Decker. Now, the beautiful thing about that is you don't have to be Devin Decker. I'm not saying go out and be Devin Decker. I'm saying go out and be Sejan Sarowick. Every morning, look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm Sejan Sarowick. And that should be good enough for you, and everything that you do and that you believe, that's what you should preach, and that's what you should live, right?
And I should point out that I was there protesting Tom Hanks' hair. That's what I was protesting.
Yes,
but
that
yes,
is exactly. I was protesting the fact that the Bible came first, right? It was written long before Dan Brown wrote the Da Vinci Code. So we got to remember where we come from, because if we forget our past, we're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want a haircut like that ever on screen again. Ron Howard, I'm looking at you.
Oh, and then
it's because he doesn't have hair anymore. He doesn't know what to do with it. No, it didn't work in Angels and Demons, because if you actually watch the last one that he just did,
Inferno.
They give him like this. Yeah, Inferno. They give him this like super sexy haircut as he chases Rogue One there through the sewers.
Oh, I know her real name, but I think that I'm only going to refer to her as Felicity Jones. Rogue One from now on. But we're also trying to show that we know what we're talking about. So Rogue One was very funny, but her name is Felicity Jones. And,
for the record, she's a phenomenal actress. Anybody that saw When a Monster Calls, by the way,
see, that's the one. I was just gonna say, I can't think of anything that I've seen her in where she really worked for me. She was kind of the worst part of the Theory of Everything, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
And I mean, and honestly, I thought it was going to be more of a Stephen Hawking movie, and it really pivots into being her story, which is completely fine. But it's not how they marketed the film.
Right.
And
if you go in not realizing it's going to be her story, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because it really is more of a focus on her, and Stephen Hawking is really kind of like a side character in her life.
Yeah. And that's 100% it. But then also, I didn't feel like she was commanding the screen. I mean, like, you put someone like that, you put anybody against Eddie Redmayne, it's an upward challenge.
Well, and Eddie Redmayne acting basically the role of his life right now. Like he I don't know if he's ever going to get a role that's going to push him as hard as that role did. Yeah, that's really not fair. It's like, yeah.
But then him to just be like a prop, basically, not saying anything negative about it, but he really was a prop in her character's life, and that's what that film is. So I don't know, but yeah, it's just one of those things, and that's it. And there's the heady thing, right? Feel free to dwell in all this nostalgia. Lord knows that our corporate overlords are shoveling it down our throats whenever and wherever they can. But also know that it's one thing to remember how you felt back then, but it's another thing to learn from how you felt back then. Because if it was a happier time in your life, it wasn't just a happier time in your life because you had Super Nintendo games. It was a happier time in your life because of other things that you yourself were doing and the person you were being. So be that person again. It's not just things, it's feelings, it's ideas. Recapture those feelings and ideas.
Yeah, man. Like for sure. And the last thing that I'll say is one of the other big things that I've been kind of diving into, just to kind of put a capper on this, is Bioshock. I've recently bought the collection, the redone collection for the PS4, and it's this fantastic little kind of nostalgia piece for me, because it doesn't ask you to do anything new. It's not like they changed anything mechanic wise or anything like that, but they did up-res a ton of the resolution and stuff like that. But the big thing about Bioshock for me, anybody that knows me knows that I write about Bioshock a ton in my academic life. It's a lot of what I write about for like my dissertation and things like that. So Bioshock has become this really kind of important thing in my life, and being able to go back to those games in the way that the collection represents them is this fantastic little line for me, because I don't want to play another Bioshock game ever in my life. I don't need a Bioshock 4. I think that it did what it set out to do, and it did it beautifully in 3 games, 2 games and 1 so-so game. But like
Oh, I
so
wonder
there's this
what the so-so game is. That is where I'm at.
so there's this beautiful like you're saying, like I'm able to go back to it and have this nostalgia moment of playing this game that I really love so much, but I'm doing it now through this lens of like actually like taking apart what was I doing while I was playing this game that made me love it so much, by the nature of that's just the kind of research that I do, right? And being able to, or being forced to draw that line as I do this kind of nostalgia walk down memory lane, is interesting and actually been really like, again, formative for me. Like it's almost reformative, because this is the stuff that made me, and now it's kind of remaking me and me revisiting it. And so I'm super excited about that. So yeah, for anybody that's a first time listener to the Say Report, this is the kind of stuff we talk about.
These are some of the heavier things that we handle
Yeah,
when
yeah.
we're talking about things, and it's all fun, right? Like we try to have a positive outlook on it, try to have that positive attitude with it. While we're talking about things that, like, our country is falling apart, it's kind of hard not to think that when you look out the window or you turn on the TV and you see the things. But learn from it and know that you can do something. Don't think that it's an insurmountable beast. You're not acting against Eddie Redmayne. You just got to do. You just got to fight the small battles that are in your backyard. And hopefully, if we all can win those smaller battles, it will mean a tide of turn for the war.
Yeah, man.
And that's,
with that,
that's something. And that's it. So thank you so much for joining us on this telethon-esque episode of the Say Report, as we ask you, the listeners, to rate and review us on iTunes. A review, a rating, it's the stuff that like really gets their metrics and their algorithms kicking and screaming. And the more kicking and screaming, the more it's harder to ignore, right?
Yeah. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, man. So let's start squeaking.
Let's start squeaking. Exactly. And now, Sijan, last week, we usually record, right? We're going to show you a look behind the curtain right now. We usually record Mondays at 8 o'clock so that you have an episode available around 9 p.m. every Monday, right?
Yes.
Which is good, so you have something to listen to on your commute on Tuesday. Or if you're trying to go to sleep, you can let our soft, melodious voices lull you into nap time.
I actually know of one person that we know that actually listens to us as they go to sleep, and I love it. They have actually informed me of this fact, and it brings me great joy that they do. So as you're asleep now, I just want to say, hey.
I want to imagine that like a bear just showed up in their dream that's got your face just going, hey. But last week, Sijan, I had us push forward our recording time to 7:30. And the reason for that was Bored with Friends was doing an interview, and they had asked me. Bored with Friends is a podcast that one of our friends, Zach Dyer, does. And he had
Friend
asked
of the
me
show,
to
Zach Dyer.
moderate that interview. And it was a great time, some really great guys. I'll give them a plug here. It's called Paws and Padlocks. It is a Kickstarter game. It's great. It looks like a very fun board game, and these guys really know what they're talking about. And if you want to go listen to Board with Friends Spotlight episode on Paws and Padlocks, Puppy Slime Games, I'm there. I'm having a good time, and we're sharing. And do you know who we have on the show today, Sijan?
What?
We have Zach, a little bit of quid pro quo.
Yeah.
He's going to show all of you listeners right now just how easy it is to rate and review something like the Say Report.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sijan, why don't you hand it over to Zach?
Zach, take it away.
Zach here from Board with Friends to say a few things about the Say Report, hosted by Sijan Sarowick and co-hosted by Devin Decker. The Say Report is a show about everything. I know that when I tune into them every week, I'm going to hear all sorts of crazy stuff. Stories from their past, things that they're interested in now. These guys even got me to listen to a story about the football game that was on, some big thing. I don't know what it was. But I actually listened to it, so that's how interesting they are. Honestly, what I love about these guys is that they're genuine. Everything they review, everything that they critique, I know that they're not just slamming somebody just to get a few ratings. They're giving an honest, genuine opinion about whatever it is that they're interested in at the time. Go listen to the Say Report. They're awesome.
Well, thank you for that, Zach. All right. Welcome on back. And do not forget, rate and review, rate and review, rate and review. All right. 3 times it's in their heads, right? That's how that works?
That's usually how it works. Repetition is the way.
So,
like, whenever you meet someone, you should say their name as much as possible so that you recall it. Sijan.
Devin. Devin. All right.
Unless you
all right,
meet
man.
Beetlejuice, because if you say Beetlejuice's name, well, he's already there, right? What
Well, I mean,
happens if you're talking to Beetlejuice and you say Beetlejuice 3 times? Do you
He just
summon
kind of,
Beetlejuice again?
yeah, he kind of pops up like 3 feet to the left, and it really pisses him off. So you got to be careful with that. But it's a really good way to win an argument with him if he's really being annoying. So Devin, like, we already went kind of down my brain for a little bit. Like, what have you been doing for the last week?
This past week has been one of the greatest weeks I've ever had.
Well, amazing. What's been going on?
Really, I sort of began to embrace my inner Devin, not to go all crazy. I'm Devin Decker like I did in a bit earlier, but I just came back from my trip, right? And I was really nervous coming back from that vacation that like it'd be hard to get back into it because you have 7 days with no responsibilities. Luckily, at work, they threw me to the wolves, and I had to register all of the incoming freshmen for classes that began today.
Oh, man. Welcome back.
And I got to tell you, having to like work that hard and like just knowing that every day I'd have a task to complete, really, it firmed up in my life. I am a firm believer that you should work to live, not live to work, right? So that's why I work a 9-to-5 job, right? You look at me, I'm not really a 9-to-5 guy. I try to be artistic and creative or whatever, right? But if I realize that if I work from 9 to 5, that gives me from 5 to 9 to do whatever I want. And that's 5 p.m. all the way to 9 a.m., right?
Yeah.
That's
Thank you for the clarification.
I just want to make sure. That's 7 hours of work, 7-8 hours of work, right? And then that leaves me with 16 hours of play, right? There being 24
Exactly.
hours in the day.
Thank you. I was not sure what the math added up to on that. Thank you.
Well, I'm just making sure. You're a theater guy. I know that theater people sometimes aren't great
Oh,
at math.
yeah, no. And mathing is hard.
Can I just tell you how
you're
ridiculous that is? Is that, like, I remember being in theater and people talking about, like, yeah, I'm not great with math or anything like that. And then, like, we're working with people who are working with electrical current. And, like, if you don't know if you're going to overload a circuit or not, you're
Yeah,
fucked.
I was going to say,
Like,
as a carpenter, I can't use the I'm in theater, I'm not good at math excuse because that means I'm actually bad at my theater job.
Yeah, I'm bad at this
Like-
job. Yeah, I'm going to measure 7 times and then cut once because I don't know what I'm doing.
What they really mean is I'm an actor and I don't know math, which is fair. Actors don't know anything.
Right? Oh, let's not be mean to actors. Stage managers don't know much either. Don't care. Needed to make
man.
Dude,
There you
I
go.
feel
You'll
as a
never work
stage-
again in your life. Stage
I'm not going to work
manager.
again in my life anyway. Let's be honest. I already offended a stage manager long ago because she would send out an email, and then she would send out a revise of that email, and then she would send out a final of that email, and then she would send out the final revised of that email, and then she would send out the true final of that email. And
That just sounds like government work, and I don't know what the problem is.
but it's stage management, man. Like, why are you going to keep doing that?
And then she cursed you, which is what stage managers do because they have magic powers. Stage managers, I didn't know if you knew this, but they're distant cousins of leprechauns.
Oh, I always thought that they were more closely related to gypsies. Gypsies is not what I wanted to fucking say there. I had something, and like you threw me off with leprechauns. I had what I was gonna say, and then you said leprechauns, and I'm like, all I could think of were my Lucky Charms. You bastard. But no. I mean, like, no, we're not trying to be mean to anybody here, right? Like, it's just I always thought it was funny that, like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna do math in theater, and it's like, yeah, but it's kind of a huge part of it. But kind of a huge part of it, right? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's why I felt I was better at theater than everybody else. Present company excluded, my friend, right? I'm just throwing it all to the wolves, Siegen. Sometimes you're a crazy son of a bitch.
I bring
right
out the
now,
best in you. That's
I'm
what
a crazy son of a bitch. Yeah, I'm talking honest. Also, I didn't get to say this about the Scrubs thing. Do you know what the Scrubs brought into my life? The Scrubs, because I'm 100. Do you know?
That Seinfeld there. That's a fantastic show he's got. The Seinfeld is fantastic.
Oh, the Seinfeld is It's a show about nothing. The Say Report, a show about everything. I hate me. I'm so happy right now. You know what I got from Scrubs? Toto. Which, if I had to rank favorite bands in my life, Toto is definitely top 5.
I mean, that entire episode. I mean, that's Zach Braff though to a T, right? Like he directed that episode and everything, didn't he?
Yes,
the Wizard of Oz episode. Yeah.
Like you talk about like Africa by Toto is overused, and it is. Now it is. But I feel like that was the first time that they used Toto by Africa
Oh,
by
I think
Toto.
that has to be the case, right? I mean, well, and that's what that show was always really good at, was kind of like starting those kind of, I mean, music memes, for lack of a better word for it, right? Like they kind of started that whole trend, because even bringing in like the pop song over like dramatic events at the end of every episode, like before Scrubs, you didn't really have that. And then suddenly after Scrubs, everybody was doing that. The closest that you had to that beforehand was Joss Whedon having a band every week in what's the name of the bar in Buffy that they used to go to, right? Like every time they'd go to
the wrong tree, buddy.
Or like the Peach Pit in was that Melrose Place or 90210? That was 90210, right? Like you had that element where like they would bring bands on because they'd be live bands within episodes. But as far as like straight up just making basically music videos every episode, like that kind of started really heavily with Scrubs, or at least they're the ones that perfected it. And then you saw it in everything after that. House, Bones, like, right? Like Grey's Anatomy, like they all took on that whole, what's this week's pop star? Smallville. I remember specifically Smallville being like the thing where like a song would pop up, and then at the end of the episode they were just like, this week on Smallville you heard like 311, and it's like, oh, all right, cool, like go to the iTunes now to download their latest single.
The show
like,
that I'm gonna tip the hat to for that is Ed. Do you remember Ed with Tom
yeah,
Cavanaugh?
man, Tom Cavanaugh, when he was the lawyer in the bowling alley, right?
God. Yeah, and Julie Bowen, now on Modern Family. So Justin Long, I was just comparing myself to Justin Long today because I was playing video games, and my parents
Ed was
were
definitely one of those shows that was too smart for television. Like I loved Ed, like, but nobody else was watching it because it just didn't click, and I don't know why, because that show is so, it's like watching Arrested Development now. Like, why did this just not work when it was on TV?
And I can't, and then somehow it got 4 episodes. It has 4 seasons. It told a complete, beautiful story. But, I mean, most of my musical tastes as an adult are shaped by the show Ed. I would not know who Daryl Hall and John Oates were if not for the episode where Ed begins lucid dreaming and they show up to give him advice.
Yeah, man. The big thing for me that came off of that show is Tom Cavanaugh himself. I wouldn't give half a crap about Flash like I do now if it wasn't for the fact that I loved him and was like way in when I found out that he was going to be playing what ended up being Reverse Flash, and then like Harrison Wells' other universe, and like what they do with him on Flash is some of the best stuff on that show.
So yeah, like Ed was that show for me. You know what it did for me? Did you ever watch MTV in the morning?
Yeah, man.
When it was actually music videos.
Yeah. That's where I've got like Other Side and a bunch of other music videos that I straight up videotaped off of that. But yeah, man.
Stacy's Mom, man. Like that was like I would watch, and I'm like, this song is crazy. But
Gorillaz. What was because all of their stuff was animated, so little me was like way into videotaping that shit and then showing to my friends later. I was like, did you know that they make cartoons as music videos? All right.
So that was the connection to Ed for me. I mean, like outside of I loved the $10 bet. I thought that was the funniest thing in that show is that Ed and his friend Mike would be like, $10 if you do this.
Yeah.
And like I loved that. I thought that was like just a great thing. But really the access point for me was the Foo Fighters. My exposure to the Foo Fighters was 100% the music videos that MTV would play in the morning before I went to school. And
you know why they actually were like really big on showing them? I actually know a weird little bit of trivia about this.
I love that. A little bit of weird trivia.
Making the video, some of the first episodes of making the video were 2 Foo Fighters ones. Specifically, the big one was Breakout, which was the video that they did for the single from Me, Myself, and Irene. That was one of the first ones, and then Learn to Fly. And those 2 were some of the first 2 really big making the video episodes for MTV. So they owned like part of the rights to them and everything. So they would show them all the time.
Yeah, Learn to Fly, when you got Jack Black and Kyle Gass there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then Dave Grohl in like 6 different costumes, which is the joke of that video, right? Where he's like the fat lady on the plane. He's also right, like yeah.
That's a great video, but the one that always stuck with me, the one that I had on my crappy little RCA MP3 player. I wanted the hockey banquet was I'll be coming home next year.
Yeah, man.
And that was the theme song for Ed.
Yeah.
Next year's that was the Ed theme song.
Man, I completely forgot that. That's anybody that wants a really good album, by the way. That is it's one of the first albums. I'm gonna look this up
it's
because
the color and the shape, right?
Yeah, man. And I remember I bought that album, and it's a picture of Grohl from the back with the Foo Fighters emblem on his neck.
Oh,
and
so
it
it's
came.
Not Color and Shape. Color and Shape is the blue and red.
Oh, that's
one.
the blue and red one.
So it's the one after Color and Shape. You can look it
I'm
up.
gonna
I'll
look
talk. I'll talk it over. But that song, that Foo Fighters song, Next Year, that being the theme song to Ed, totally brought me back to those days when I would watch the
Nothing. It's Nothing Left to Lose.
Right, Nothing Left to Lose. Great album.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Color in the Shape is their iconic one, but I feel like Nothing Left to Lose is a really, really good album. So good that neither one of us could remember the name of it. But
No, it's actually super important though, because Breakout, Learn to Fly, what's the one that was on Daria that was like the big ending one on Daria? Aurora.
Yeah.
Was the big one that was on there, right? And then you're talking about Next Year, which is so good. It's just a fantastic album. But yeah, so
and
Ed, like,
hearing that, and then the real kick in the ass about that is Next Year was the theme song for the first season of Ed, and then season 2 they had like lost the rights to it, or they didn't want to pay for the rights anymore, so they changed it to another song I could tell you nothing about. It's like about the sun or something.
Yeah.
And then like,
I wonder if it's like Smash Mouth or something.
No, it's not Walking on the Sun. If it were Walking on the Sun, I think I would remember it. I think I would be okay with it too, because young Devin, bad taste in music, right? But I remember that. And like,
everybody's gone through a Smash Mouth phase. We can all forgive you for that.
But that song came on, and without Next Year there, I kind of felt like disconnected from the show Ed, which was odd.
Oh, no.
And then the third season comes back, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to watch anymore. I'll watch the first episode, right? I'll see how it resolves, but like, I'm just not there anymore. And Next Year was the friggin' song again.
That's awesome.
And it continued to be the theme song going forward the remainder of the show. But like, it's just one of those things where like, music has such power over memory. And like, since we're talking about memory and all that stuff, like, you bring up Scrubs, and I think of Colin Hay, because of all his Man at Work stuff that he put into that show.
Well, and then he ends up showing up himself on the show, and he ends up doing a couple of acoustic pieces on it, right?
They're all actually from his album Man at Work, which is his acoustic covers of Men at Work hits.
Men at Work,
which was fantastic. But really, and it's for the stupidest reason ever that that like Toto's Africa stuck out to me in that episode of Scrubs. Is because someone, like that whole episode, the 100th episode of Scrubs, in case you have not seen it, this is a slight spoiler, but whatever. It's a huge homage to The Wizard of Oz.
I mean, that's not that big of a spoiler. Like, it's pretty obvious in the first 10 minutes if that's what you were worried about spoiling.
Yeah, I just don't want like someone to like, but go there, lead up to it, because it leads up to it. But it's a nice way to celebrate the 100th episode. I mean, The Wizard of Oz is a movie in our house that every Decker believes, almost through force. Our religion is that every day you will hear a reference to The Wizard of Oz.
Or Seinfeld, but yeah.
Yeah, well, ours is Wizard of Oz. Seinfeld is another good one. So like to
Aren't
watch
you were the family that, I'm trying to remember, one of my friends celebrates Festivus almost religiously.
Oh, we definitely celebrate Festivus religiously. The poll is still up because I have not yet been pinned. Yes, no, we do. Festivus is something that the Deckers is a proud tradition, but the reference a day is 100% Wizard of Oz, and it's just basically Bader Meinhof because we're looking for it, but it's still fun. So that whole episode, which is like a love letter to that movie, really stood out for me. And I was talking with some friends after we had watched it, and he's like, "And I love that Toto was the iPod," and I'm like, "No, Toto was the band on the iPod. The iPod's name is not Toto." And he's like, "What? No, man. JD's iPod is Toto." And I'm like, no. So I went and I bought a Toto album that night to be like, this is the band Toto. This is the song he was listening to. And then I was stuck with the Toto album, right? And I'm like, I'll listen to Africa 100 times until I break this CD. And then I'll never listen to it again. But then I was driving around, I don't know, I think it was for a graduation party in like the heart of Massachusetts, like around Gloucester area. And the only album I had in my car was that Toto CD. So I'm like, I guess I'll listen to the rest of this. And love, man. Love just happened inside of my heart.
Yeah.
And now like, and that has totally shaped like the type of music that I love going forward. Yeah. I don't know what we're talking about. I've just been like plucking threads from the air,
No, this is the average episode. Did we not explain this? We should probably explain this to our listener. Here we are.
I was trying to beautifully segue into
30 minutes into the episode. We should definitely segue into explaining exactly what it is we've been doing today. But yeah, like we've wanted to talk to you all about this whole rate and review process and about how we want to stick around with you guys. So in order to do that, we need listeners. And so we thought today we'd give you guys as average of an episode as we could while being as, on average as we always are. On average, is that a word? I'm using it.
Yeah, we're basically on average right now.
Yeah. So like this is what we do on a regular basis. We go down these rabbit holes. We discover this stuff about what we're talking about, and maybe change our opinions 3 different times in a conversation because we're human. And I think that's one of the interesting things about podcasting for me is a lot of people, like, when it came to radio, there was a lot of assurity, and I think that was because a lot of the people doing radio were like important voices, right? And then podcasting came along, and suddenly it's not so many important people anymore. It's everybody gets to put their 2 cents in, and we know we're not more than that. We are just 2 guys putting our 2 cents in, but that means that we get to talk about this stuff as freely as possible. We're not censored in any way. I bet if we ever do get noticed by iTunes, they'll stick an explicit label on us.
Oh, we already have that on there, buddy. Don't worry.
Woohoo! Yeah,
we have that red E of courage.
Yeah, man.
Fret not.
Well, I like to think of it as the Scarlet E.
You know what? But I have like real weird problems with the Scarlet Letter going back to my high school days because we read the book and they're like, oh, she's so da, 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 da. So then like I stood up once at lunchtime with a big red A on my chest for the entirety of the lunch period, and then I walked into class and I'm like, I felt nothing. Right? Like, this is friggin' high school, right? People judge you if you wear the wrong color hat, right? People judge you if you say the wrong word, right? Like, that word's not cool anymore. We're not calling things cool. We're calling it curly fries, right? You idiot.
It's almost as if you discovered the point of the book through this exercise.
Right, exactly. But, like, that's where I learned it from, was, like, this is how you do it. Don't... It was just like this. It felt like a wasted lesson to me because I'm like 30 minutes in Hector Pryor's shoes and I got it.
Yep.
Whereas like reading the book and watching the movie, and I'm like, we had to sign a goddamn permission slip because of the sexually explicit material, and they still fast forwarded through most of it. And it's just like...
Meanwhile, I went to a school where at 13 years old, they showed us Good Will Hunting. But, whatever.
At 13 years old, they showed us The Princess Bride. Like, that was like a gift for us. And we took a break for lunch. And then when we had come back, someone had swapped out The Princess Bride with American Pie. And that was awesome.
Oh, no.
And you know who they thought it was?
You?
Yeah, but you know who it wasn't?
Yeah,
also
I'm going to guess it was you.
No, it wasn't. I hadn't seen American Pie until that day. And then I'm like, I'm going to go buy this. So I went to BJ's and bought it. Because if you're going to buy American Pie anywhere, it should be BJ's.
Ha I bet it was Brad Curtin. There you go. Inside jokes. Boom. Another thing we do every episode.
Actually,
Things
we
you
try
won't
to
get.
avoid the inside jokes.
Yeah. Quote marks around we try to avoid.
Oh, man.
Oh man,
that was a good inside joke. I'll give you that. but he's right. Siegen is right. Podcasting again, like we want people to hear it because we have fun doing it. But at the end of the day, I'm doing it for me. Like, and that's the beauty of podcasting is that like you get to sit down, you get to record something that is your voice and your ideas and your beliefs and share it with the world. And maybe you get 1 listener, maybe you get 100 listeners, but if you are someone that has found us, please give us your love and rate and review us on iTunes.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's another person who can show us just how easy it is to do that. It's my friend. A year ago, he started his own podcast called Your Favorite Podcast, which the fact that had not been scooped up yet, Mark's a genius. Mark, the Cyber Sasquatch Daniels, he's pretty much a genius. And he's playing video games every week, every Thursday for Gamer Assault Weekly. So if you want that nostalgia in a video game form, and if you're here, there's a good chance that you do. Check out Mark, the Cyber Sasquatch Daniels, playing those games. But right now, we're going to cut to him so he can show you just how easy it is to rate and review something. Take it away, Mark.
This is Cyber Sasquatch, here to tell you about the Say Report. The greatest podcast, the premierest podcast, talking about any range of topics. No topic is too taboo, no topic is too obscure. When it comes to, personality oozing from the brim, you're not going to get a better dose than the Say Report, available on iTunes and YouTube.
Thank you so much, Mark. And, that's true. We also do put these up on YouTube. If you're listening on iTunes, we appreciate it. That's where we want you to rate and review. But if you are watching our static image of our beautiful logo, courtesy of Siege and Sarowick, and you're on YouTube and you're seeing it, you know what? Subscribe so that you get the new episodes. Comment, because really we need to hear from you. Because you know what I got last week, Siege? And last week we did a real deep dive into kids' movies.
Sure.
Which is something that's going to happen, right? You got to take the good and the bad. Sometimes we'll talk about the neo-Gothic television and the dark sarcasm that is coming through in television now. Occasionally we'll talk about the children's movies of our past, right? That's what you get. But the comment that I got was from Mark himself, next week you can only talk about R-rated action movies. Because you guys, I want to hear about that stuff too. I don't want to just hear about kids' movies. And that's the other thing, right, about podcasting. Podcasters are accessible, right? We're talking directly to you right now.
Exactly.
So you feel free to talk directly to us.
Yeah, reviews are really, honestly, the easiest way to get to us with that sort of stuff.
And that's it. And let us know. Let us know what works for you. Let us know what doesn't work for you. And you know what? We'll try to adapt as best we can, right? And because that's the medium, right? The beauty of podcasting is that the only person you really have to answer to is your fans. And you want to make sure that they're continually entertained while also entertaining yourself.
And I will say that you want us to talk about some R-rated action movies. Do not worry, that will happen. I mean, we've got there are plenty of films in the world that we will dive into in that vein. Did you have one in particular?
Well, I could talk about any R-rated action movie right now, but I was really going to say Baby Driver comes out.
That was going to be my move. Oh my God, Devin, you stole the words out of my mouth.
That's
Go see Baby Driver.
Go see Baby Driver because episode 24. We're going to be talking about Baby Driver.
Yeah, we are.
It's Edgar Wright. It's our wheelhouse film.
Mm-hmm. And then, on top of that, the cast is amazing. And as much as I love the Cornetto trilogy cast, none of those guys are actually in this one. So anybody that's hoping to see Edgar Wright do his thing with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, that's not the kind of movie you're getting into. But what you are getting instead are things like Jamie Foxx, John Hamm. We've got a cast.
Ansel Elgort.
Yeah. Kevin
Spacey.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm so excited to see Kevin Spacey just spewing some Edgar Wright dialogue. It's going to be amazing.
This is the one that I'm really excited about. Hot Fuzz will forever be the pinnacle for me of Edgar Wright filmmaking.
Well, and World's End was such a delightful movie to go and be able to see that summer. There was a lot of weird stuff around in that summer, but for some reason, I was able to pull together a good group of friends to go and see World's End, and we just had a friggin' blast in the theater seeing that movie. So it's one of those weird things where I kind of forget how much I really enjoyed World Ends, and then I think about it and I remember, oh man, that was a hell of a night. That movie was just so much fun to watch with just a group of guys and just hang out and just, guys and girls, we were all drunk off our ass watching this amazing sci-fi action movie. It was so much fun. So I'm so excited for Baby Driver. I'm tingle.
Talking honest to the tingly Siegen, when I went to go see World's End, I was very excited. Dale was very excited. It was me and my sister who went to go see it. 50 minutes in, it went down.
Oh, no.
And an hour and a half later, they got it fixed.
Oh.
Now, that is an interesting... That's a great movie if you watch it start to finish.
Yeah,
but with
that's not a movie to stop.
Break in the middle,
no,
it kind of loses some of its punch and pizzazz.
Well, and that's one of the big things about World's End as compared to, well, no, you know what? I will actually say Shaun of the Dead is kind of that way too.
I think Hot Fuzz is too. All of them are building towards something.
Yeah, you know what it is I think that's just the way that Edgar Wright makes his movies. Because even Scott Pilgrim, there's this kinetic energy to it where once it gets going, it gets going. Because I have actually stopped Scott Pilgrim in the middle, and I looked at the person watching it with me who was watching it for the first time, and they were just not in a place to finish it. And I was like, we're going to have to wait like a couple of years so that you're comfortable going back to the beginning of this movie, because there's no way for us to just watch this movie one day and just start up in the middle of this film. And so like, and that's as somebody who like is currently looking at the Scott Pilgrim signed poster on his wall. Like I love that movie. And I was like, there's no way to just start this movie in the middle. You need to start at the beginning. So there's like this weird like kinetic energy to the way that Edgar Wright makes films. So like, that's the other thing that I'm excited about with Baby Driver is I know that the second that I sit down in that seat, I'm not going to pay attention to the time until it's over, and then I'm going to feel like nothing is like it's going to feel amazing. I'm so excited.
What I'm really looking forward to is the second time that I see Baby Driver, because that's where it really works for me in Edgar Wright film.
Well, yeah.
Because
he plants so much.
He plants so much, but it's not just that. It's that, like you said, time doesn't matter that first time. But also because there's that kineticism, so they're very bang, 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 bang. But because time loses meaning, they also kind of feel stretched out. If you know, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So when you go see an Edgar Wright film the second time, and you know where all the beats are, and you know all the exciting parts to look for, it becomes a faster and more furious ride.
Mm-hmm. It's like having a good book in your hand or having a good comic book is actually might be a better one. It's like it's one that you've read 1,000 times. So like you said, you know where the beats are, but like you also know like how the flow goes and everything. And it's just comfortable to be in. Yeah, you're right. Like second times through are always so much fun.
Like, because arguably the first time I saw Hot Fuzz, I'm like, I really liked it and I'd like to see it again, but I didn't love it the way that I love it now.
Right.
And then I saw it that second time, and I'm like, no, this movie's freaking great. And then 5 more viewings in the theater later, I'm like, I don't know how it gets better than this.
Yeah, we should do World's End again sometime where you can sit down and actually just watch it and enjoy it. Because
a week later, I ended up seeing, I didn't see it. That really kind of killed film for me, if I'm being 100% honest. That whole experience like soured me to film. And then 2 Saturdays afterwards, the Spectacular Now came out, where the world got introduced to Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley. Like big movie, like a landmark independent film as far as I'm concerned.
It is.
And that movie like reinvigorated my love of cinema so much that I walked out of the theater and bought a ticket to World's End to give it a second proper chance.
Yeah.
And I loved it that second time.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
If it's on HBO, I'm putting it on and I'm watching it.
Mm-hmm. And like I was saying, like he does this fantastic job. He even does this in Scott Pilgrim, though a lot of that could be attributed to the comic book beforehand. But he plants a lot of stuff along the way that pays off in such great dividends towards the end that like having that break in the middle, it just kind of kills the motion of that joke. It's like watching an Arrested Development episode and then like not getting any of the inside jokes when you're watching it. Well, then what are you doing while you're watching this show? I've taken Ron Howard to task a few times today, and I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. I mean, like, did Ron Howard do Apollo 13?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Apollo 13. There's no better movie, Ron Howard, that you have worked on than Apollo 13. It is a film that I absolutely love. And because I can say that I 100% unequivocally love Apollo 13, I feel like I can also make fun of you when you misstep. Plus, I love American Graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, right? Like
they can't actually pull a car apart like that, though.
Yeah, I do. I know that it's just a fun movie. You know, it's a fun movie and a movie I'm trying to find on Blu-ray for not hundreds of dollars. More American Graffiti.
Oh man.
If you've never seen it, go out and watch it.
I don't think I've ever. Yeah, isn't that like
man.
the Grease 2 of like no, like I don't have no.
Dude,
I don't know if I had any interest in that.
Really, dude.
All right,
you call it the Grease 2. You like it's not that because it is all the same people coming back. It is still George Lucas.
Really,
it is such a weird. Yeah, I mean, because like you think of American Graffiti. Semi-spoilers. One of the guys ends up dead. That's how the movie ends. This dude ended up dying, right?
Yeah.
Life. And then to see that they make a sequel to that movie, you're like, eh. But then you sit down and you start watching it, and it's like, the closest thing that I can track it to, and this is insane, and I understand that it's insane, is the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, the first one.
Wow. You don't realize how insane it was, but yes, okay, sure. Wait, so more American Graffiti is like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 1?
Yes.
All right.
No, but the reason why I draw that comparison is not because I'm cuckoo crazy nuts. It's because what is it? Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, the very first Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Every girl had her own, like, the camera had its own settings for her story, right? So it really felt like you were
like
watching.
Each one of their own stories was like filmed by a different director, almost. Like it was really weird.
It's right. Like there's a blue filter over one. There's one that's like really exposed. Like, it's cool. Like so, it makes it feel like each one of their stories is unique, right? It's very nice visual storytelling, and 100% that is what they do in More American Graffiti, but like to an even crazier extent. There's one in 4:3. There's one in 16:9. There's one in even smaller, like screen ratio.
All right. Well, let me ask you this: the big thing about American Graffiti for me, as somebody that was nowhere near alive when that movie came out, is the soundtrack as important as American Graffiti soundtrack was, because that's kind of part of why American Graffiti is remembered for what it is that it not only captured the moment as well as it did, but it also captured the music as well as it did.
One of the prized possessions that I own is a double CD of the More American Graffiti.
Well, as somebody that owns the
vinyl.
double, I was going to say, as somebody that owns the double vinyl of American Graffiti, I'm glad to hear that there is just as expansive and important as the soundtrack.
It's the songs of that generation, and it's that stuff that really is, like, we say that, like, Scrubs did something, but, like, American Graffiti really brought music to film the way that we think of music in film, that we take it for granted.
And we should point out that when we talk about Scrubs doing this sort of stuff, what we're talking about is those are the moments where it kind of clicked for us, right? And we talk about context all the time, and that's an important aspect of nostalgia. So like what you're talking about, like what Scrubs did wasn't new, but what they did was they were the first ones to really kind of push it into like the zeitgeist for us and for like all the people around us. Like I remember people buying Scrubs soundtracks around me, you know, like it was the first TV show that I know people were like talking about how the soundtrack was what they were bootlegging, not just the episodes, right? Like that sort of thing was happening around me. But like you're saying, American Graffiti, like, man, that soundtrack, and apparently more American Graffiti. So I got to look that up too, because like that music just rocks my world.
Yeah, it does, and that's fun. But you know what? That movie works for me. I wish we lived in that time, because the one thing that I love, maybe more than anything in the world, is sitting in my car, driving around with no particular destination, and the fact that like. In American Graffiti, that's their Friday night. Is we're all going to get in our cars and drive around on Main Street. Cruising
and playing the radio with no particular place to go. I get you.
I would love to do that. And it's just like something that does not happen in these days.
Yeah, man.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this, what in years from now will be the museum piece of an example of the Say Report.
Yeah. They're going to be listening to us at the Smithsonian right next to Kermit and Fonzie's jacket.
I love it. I was going to say Fonzie's jacket, and he beat me to it, ladies and gentlemen. The Fonzie was in Happy Days
with Ron Howard.
The Fonzie. I'm the Fonzie, eh? Anywho, thank you very much for joining us. Again, rate and review this on iTunes, YouTube, comment, subscribe. We want to hear from you. And you know what? And that's not the only way. You can also get us on Twitter. We are at The Say Report. If you want to yell at Siegen specifically, he's at Siege versus the World.
And if you want to yell at Devin specifically or correct anything that he said wrong today, or berate him for any promises he's made but not kept, you can be found at Devin D. Decker.
And also we're on Facebook. Just search The Say Report. We have fun. I've been sharing a lot of stuff. Did you see the preview of Mrs. Beakley from the DuckTales reboot I put up there?
No, I need to go look at it right now.
Oh, dude, totally Eleanor Roosevelt. Totally Eleanor Roosevelt. That's all I'm going to say. Hashtag woo.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please, thank you so much. I am Devin Decker.
I'm Siegen Sarowick.
Go, rate, review, and now, as we heard in the beginning, we will leave you with the melodious tones of Mr. William Fournier. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Siegen Sarowick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.